we're the National Center for Agrarian Art, and our mission is to be here for preserving, viewing, and learning about exceptional agrarian art. The viewing is the viewing of the exhibitions, the changing exhibitions and work in this room, our permanent collection of well-known agrarian art from artists all over the country, both living and deceased. And then our changing exhibitions are in the front gallery. And this event celebrates the last week of one of our 4 yearly changing exhibitions, which is Nancy Bass, My Virginia Farm. And then, as part of our learning about agrarian art, we have events like the poetry event here. So if you haven't had a chance to see the Nancy Bass exhibit, look at that before you leave. It's very exceptional. Artists like this have one venue in the country that they can really look to that supports them, and it's this venue. And so we had a very visionary board that decided that there was a need for an agrarian art museum that would focus on agrarianism. And so I'd like to introduce a few of our board members who are here and have you know who they are. Our Alan Cobalt is one of our, Alan, could you wave if you're, maybe he's in the other room. Alan is our secretary of the board, keeps mindful minutes. Anna Nolan is our president of the board. Anna, both are real visionary leaders in this, our founders. And Mike Morbeck is our financial officer. If you live in David City, you know Mike. He keeps track of all of our finances. And my wife is on the board. She's not here today. And I'm curator. And I have also Ryan Cameron is our visionary. He is our architect and donates his services and helps us out. You'll notice that we're very crowded here today. We have a vision for the future so that in future years we won't have to be so crowded, making multiple use of a space like this with both gallery and people gathered together. So we're working on that, and we're going to get there someday. Also, I think not here, we have Brian Zimmer, who helps us with our technology issues and with management issues. With that, I'm going to get into the poetry right away. Before I do that, I want to introduce Associate Curator here, Amanda Mobley. And Amanda curated the exhibition in the front gallery. She curates most of our exhibitions. Amanda was on the radio Friday with our 3 poets and did a great job. And so we're happy to have Amanda joining us for a discussion of agrarianisms after we do the poetry. So I would start the poetry. I did want to, I thought about introducing all the poets and reciting all their credentials, and we have 3 wonderful poets, all with great credentials. What I would like to do is ask each of the poets, actually, to tell us why they have so generously donated a little bit of their time to come and speak to us today, and why part of their poetry and part of their life revolves around the poems. Not all their work is agrarianism, but a good part of it. So I'll do that to rather than recite a list of credentials, ask each poet to just explain why they're here and anything else they want to say about themselves and their work. And then we'll do the poems. And I think we're going to start with Ted Kooser. Anybody recognize that name? So generous of all of our poets to come and lend their name to our museum. So, Ted, would you like to? We have a mic and grab that one.
This one?
Either one, whichever.
I'll move this chair a little so I can see this.
Sure. do is activate the switch, and you're good to go.
Activated. I'm Ted Kooser, and I've been up here several times. I live not too far away. We live in the country in eastern Seward County, so this is not much of a drive for me. I love this gallery. It's great fun to come up here during the week when there aren't 30 people between you and the artwork. And you can really look around, but it's a marvelous collection. These people have done a great job putting it together. As for my backgrounds in connection with agrarianism, I grew up in central Iowa, in Ames. My father was a storekeeper there, but my mother's family were farming people from northeastern Iowa. I wrote a little book several years ago called Life's Underground of Darkness about that part of the family. I have lived in Iowa and Nebraska all my life. I don't usually say this, but I'll say it here, is that I've never been to Europe. I've never been across the Atlantic. I got as far as Hawaii going the other direction and came right back. I didn't like Hawaii. You know, Hawaii, it was the same every day. I met a woman over there named Kathy Chang who was raised on the Big Island and from a Korean family, and she said, I have a very low range of temperatures that I can tolerate, between 78 and 80. But out here, we get 100 degrees to think about out here from cold. And so, at any rate, I'm very proud of my heritage in Iowa. My dad's family, although Dad was a storekeeper, his family came from Pennsylvania and Ohio, and they were farmers in central Iowa. And my work is about living on the Great Plains, and although I've written lots of poems that if you saw them in isolation, you wouldn't know what the setting of them was or where they were. When you get them all together, they sort of look like Nebraska, I think. So, also, I might say that I'm so sick of my own poetry that I thought today I'd read some poems by some other people, and one of mine. But I've had to, since 2004, I've had so much attention on me as a poet that I got really sick of myself. I would stand there at those podiums looking out into the audience and sort of see myself looking back. There were these moments, you know, and I told somebody a few minutes ago that if I heard that Homer was going to recite the Iliad in Garland tonight, I wouldn't show up. Donald Hall, who lives on his grandparents' farm in New Hampshire, succeeded me as U.S. Poet Laureate and has written some really wonderful poems about country life. I thought I'd read a couple of his. Check my watch here to make sure I don't take too much time. Maple syrup. August. Goldenrod blowing. We walk into the graveyard to find my grandfather's grave. 10 years ago, I came here last, bringing marigolds from a round garden outside the kitchen. I didn't know you then. We walk among carved names that go with photographs on top of the piano at the farm. Keniston, Wells, Tyler, Batchelor, Buck. We pause at the new grave of Grace Fenton, my grandfather's sister. Last summer we called on her at the nursing home, 87 and nodding in a blue house dress. We cannot find my grandfather's grave. Back at the house where no one lives, we potter and explore the back chamber where everything comes to rest. Spinning wheels, pretty boxes, quilts, bottles, books, albums of postcards. Then with a flashlight we descend firm steps to the root cellar, black, cobwebby, huge, with dirt floors and fieldstone walls, and above the walls holding the hewn sills of the house, enormous granite foundation stones. Past the empty bins for squash, apples, carrots, and potatoes, we discover the shelves for canning, a few pale pints of tomato left. And what is this? Syrup. Maple syrup in a quart jar. Syrup my grandfather made 25 years ago for the last time. I remember coming to the farm in March and sugaring time as a small boy. He carried the pails of sap, 16 quart buckets, dangling from each end of a wooden yoke that lay across his shoulders, and emptied them into a vat in the sap house where fire burned day and night for a week. Now the sap house tilts nearly to the ground like someone exhausted to the point of death, and next winter when snow piles 3 feet thick on the roofs of the coal farm, the sap house will shudder and slide with the snow to the ground. Today we take my grandfather's last quart of syrup upstairs, holding it gingerly, and we wash off 25 years of dirt, and we pull and pry the lid up, cutting the stiff, dried rubber gasket, and dip our fingers in, you and I both, and taste the sweetness, you for the first time, the sweetness preserved of a dead man in his own kitchen, giving us from his lost grave the gift of sweetness.